Hi, NYSOA family. As you all know, March is Women's History Month, and here with us we have Kris Bailey to share a little bit of her story and her history here in NYSOA. Thank you for spending the time today, Kris.
My pleasure.
So what kind of led you to join NYSOA? When do you think you joined NYSOA? Kind of tell us how you got started.
Well, it was between 1998 and 1999. I can't tell you exactly when I got into NYSOA. I was actually in Georgia at the time. I joined because I had a lot of mentors that were NYSOA, and at that point in time, I had no female mentors. I only had male mentors, and so to be able to continue a journey, I was going to have to kind of follow those gentlemen that had been helping me into it. And a couple of people that were very instrumental in helping me move into that. But I will tell you, once I joined the NYSOA chapter, I probably had more people that didn't necessarily want me to be there than those that did. Turned out there were two other female members at that point in time when I joined. They had been there a while, but they were very much relegated to secondary type things, kind of last minute, whenever they didn't have somebody or it was really close to their house. That was when they got an assignment. And so one of my ideas was, let's kind of try to improve that whole picture of how it was going to be, because I was at that point working on upgrading myself, getting a lot of resistance at that point for me upgrading. And there are people to this day who will tell you I didn't deserve it, but I did all the things I was supposed to, and I did in fact upgrade at that point. So that's how I got into it. I cannot tell you it was probably the most pleasant experience of my refereeing career. I had a lot better success within the high school ranks. I can remember going to a university in Georgia, and it shall remain nameless. I had experience with their head coach when I lived in Florida. So he didn't know who I was, but I'll tell you what, he spent the entire game complaining to the referee. I was AR2 across the field from him, complaining to the referee about having me on his game, although absolutely nothing that I did affected the performance. So it was kind of one of those eye-openers of, you don't always want to be able to know the people that you're working with. And I felt sorry for the referee more so that day. And he kept telling me, it's okay, it's okay. And it's like, no, it's really not. You shouldn't have to be worried about that kind of nonsense. But thankfully, we've evolved since then.
Yeah, wow. So you met a lot of resistance. You were one of, it sounds like, 3 women in your chapter. Did you get a chance to work with any of those other women at all when you first joined?
Yes. Not one of the ladies. She lived farther across the state from me, and really our paths didn't cross only because of that. However, the other lady lived in the Atlanta area. We had more games in the Atlanta area, and she was assigned with me probably, oh gosh, maybe 10 times over the course of the next few years. And we did very well together. And we were lucky because there was a particular college, again, I won't use any of the college's names, but there was a women's program south of Atlanta. And that coach was very supportive of having the females. And so we got assigned to that school quite a bit. And I truly believe that coach was instrumental in allowing us to be assigned, because I think he requested that we be there, and he was always very supportive of us. There was another school up north, again, a coach that I had known from Florida. He was incredibly supportive of me, and I got some assignments because of that. And one of my favorite stories, and many of you in the NYSOA ranks will know a gentleman named Rod Kenny. Rod's been around for a number of years. Rod was coaching college at the time. I was assigned to a game in a college, and it was a duel, and my partner didn't show up. It was just me by myself. And Rod had the one team. And he looked at the coach and he said, she can do it. And the coach said, oh, no, no, we're not letting a single be a female. And Rod said, really? We've traveled all this way from Florida for this game. And I'm telling you right now, she can do it. And the coach said, well, okay, I'm doing this under protest. And the game went along. And I know there are things that I missed. I mean, there's no doubt as a single on a game, there were things I missed. However, I do remember specifically getting 2 different offside calls. And Rod was really pleased with my performance when it was over. And I went to shake hands with the coaches. And the coach looked at me and said, you did prove me wrong. And Rod walked up right then and looked at him and said, I told you so. So I've had some good times where, they didn't believe in me. They didn't want me. They weren't going to have me. And, it worked out. But I think my own partners in all of this were the ones that made it more difficult. I had difficulty getting games. I had difficulty with assigners not understanding. I was told, well, I wouldn't want my wife to be doing what you're doing. And my response was, glad I'm not your wife. So then I was punished by giving games many, many, many hundreds of miles farther away. And so, you have to learn to go through those, keep your head up, and don't complain. I learned that early on. Don't complain, because it wasn't going to be to my benefit to complain at that point in time. Now, people that know me today know that I'll complain if I need to, because I have more of a voice in it. But at that time, I just shut my mouth and kept going. And there were moments that, you wanted to quit. You wanted to say, I don't need this. It's a hobby and all of that. And then there's the other piece of it that I'm reaping the rewards of today, which I'm watching many women get opportunities, not because of me, but because somebody had the tenacity. And that's really the only word I can use for myself to say, wait a minute, nope, I'm not going to let you chase me away. So what else would you like to know?
So it sounds like, you did fight through it, and you kind of talked about, the opportunities that women are starting to get today. And we're coming off of the World Cup where, women made history there in officiating, which is awesome. How would you say, what are a couple of the moments that through the years you've been really proud to watch as like the opportunities have grown for women?
Probably the 1996 World Cup. No, I'm sorry, 1994 World Cup in Orlando, Florida. I watched a fellow female get to be a referee liaison, which had not happened. And that was really a defining moment where they recognized that the US had women referees. Now, did she get to do anything from a refereeing perspective? No, it was an administrative job. But the point was that she got to do it, that she got to move into that. And then I watched as the years went by, and I watched the collegiate game change. First of all, the women's teams received more respect. Once the U.S. women's team became more successful, when we saw the Mia Hams and those types of players becoming more and more successful, we watched people starting to accept women into the different roles of this. As coaching, probably one of the finest coaches I saw, and I know this will sound very odd. She was an older female who was coaching an under 18 boys team, and this was many, many years ago. I'm talking in the 90s. Very unusual. People would, the lack of respect for her. However, because she knew what she was doing, her craft was well accepted, she became one of the premier coaches that I had seen. So I watched these roles change. People start accepting, hey, you know what? This person knows what they're doing. Probably when I I was told at one point in time during high school that the particular place I was living, they would not accept a woman in the middle of a game. And I had to accept that, move to the AR position without complaining, because I was just delighted to be on a high school final. That hadn't happened. And then 3 years later, received the whistle for a final, and realized that the ideas were changing. And one of the proudest moments was watching a particular team and the team that they played. I got the whistle on the match, and when the game was over and they were going up to receive their medals, I was standing next to the stage for them. They'd asked us to walk out towards the stage as a crew, and we were taken up and given medals. And that was just one of those moments that, you know, you realize that things were changing. And to see the women of today, when I see a college final, a NYSOA NCAA final, and we watch the officials accept it as part of the success of that, and they're given those, I go back to that moment, and then I watch them and I think, we have come so far. And then you watch a Katie Nesbitt walk up those steps at World Cup and receive her medal. If you don't get some chills, male, female, no matter what, then you don't understand how far this has come, and the definition of being able to change cultures so that we have the best people doing what they should be doing. It's not about gender or any other characteristic. It's about whether you know your job and whether you do your job well. And that's all that anybody has ever wanted in equality, is that if I know my job well, then give me the opportunity. And I've watched this happen over the last probably 5 to 8 years, that things are starting to get to that point. And when we saw the appointments to World Cup of females across the board, doing all the positions, every position. It wasn't this that they were relegated to the VAR room. It was that they were relegated to field positions. They had the whistle. They did all the things. All of a sudden, we realized that now we're being accepted as being able to do the job, and that's what's critically important. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, no, it did. On all of those moments that you remember have to be super special as you watch history continue to be made, and that's really cool. What advice would you give to someone who might not be going through the same struggles that you went through when you first joined, but might be experiencing some similar resistance as they try and navigate their upward trajectory and try to earn appointments and those types of things? What would you say to them?
I think it's what I was trying to say before. Know your job. It doesn't matter which system you're working under, whether you're working under US Soccer, whether you're working under NYSOA, whether you're working under a National Federation of High School. Know whatever set of rules or laws that are there. Know the backwards, forwards, up and down. Make sure that your fitness, your physical conditioning is top notch. Probably that's where I fell down more than anything. Was I had moments where my physical didn't match what I needed to be able to do. And then finally, mental. If you do not feel mentally strong to walk out there, don't walk out there. Don't put yourself in that position. Work into lower positions until you feel strong enough to take that on. Mental preparation to deal with a coach who doesn't want you has to be done prior to the time you walk out there. You got to get a toolbox of statements. And one of my favorites that I did use was, "We don't want a female here." Well, okay, but guess what? I'm the only one you've got, and if you really want to play your game, this is going to be what you're going to have to do. I also told any number of coaches, give me a chance. And when we're done, I'll give you the opportunity for you to tell me what you think I didn't do well. That's really walking out on that long pier, Because if you do have a bad game, they get that opportunity and you have to give it to them. And I've had one of those, believe me, I had one of those. But anyhow, the point is that be prepared. Do everything you can to be prepared. If you're trying to get a NCAA playoff position, make sure that you take that test and you get the best grade you can on it. Make sure that you're physically conditioning yourself so that you physically can handle it, that you will always be as close to whatever you can. Make sure that you are attending every educational session you possibly can. NYSOA offers you any number of opportunities to get educated. Been there, done that, know exactly how that goes. Take those opportunities, get those, and make sure that you are listening to what's being told. Because I worked with Corey Rockwell when I lived in Georgia. I threatened him once that if he ran past me when I was on his line, if he ran past me because he had the referee position, I was going to throw my flag on the ground and walk over and sit in the bleachers. At one point, he was very close to passing me, and I looked at him and he slowed up because he didn't want me to leave. But Corey has a very good mind for the game of today, and he's authoring your education. You need to be able to listen to that, and you need to learn from it. Are all the tools that are offered to you applicable to what you can do? No. The way I would speak to a female player, there are many of the male referees that couldn't speak to them that way. Same thing is true for me talking to male players. I can't say the same thing that one of the gentlemen can say. You have to learn all those nuances. You have to work with other people. You have to look at what they do and take things out of what they do and put them in your toolbox. That's the critical piece. If you're prepared, then you can advocate for you to move into those positions. If you are unprepared and you just think you should get it because, oh, you know, I did an under 18 the other day and it went really well. Make sure that you're prepared for whatever you are trying for. Are you always going to be successful? No. As I have said, and if you've ever been in a class, I've said this a million times. If you have the perfect game, retire that day because it isn't happening again. There isn't a perfect game. It doesn't work that way. You're dealing with 22 other human beings on the field, along with all those people that stand on the touch lines. It isn't going to be perfect. However, you want to walk away feeling like you did the best job you possibly could do with the situation, that you were well prepared for it. And that's how you're going to move forward. If someone asks you to do a game that you don't think you can manage, if there is no penalty to that, take the game, say yes. However, a perfect example, if it's a playoff game, if it's a championship game, and you don't think you can handle it, don't take the assignment. There's too much on the line for those 22 players. And one of the things referees always have to remember is, always, it's not about us. We are here. Always go back and try to remember why you decided to do this. Everybody has a story as to why you decided to become a referee, but it's almost always based on your love of the game. Don't destroy that by your own ego getting in there as to, I'm doing this because I wanted to do it. No. Do it because it's the right thing for the players. I got into this because I was coaching. I had a referee tell my goalkeeper on a penalty kick, a perfectly justified penalty kick, that he had to stand exactly in the middle of the goal. And I said, no, he doesn't. And he said, yes, he does. I said, no, he doesn't. He says, yes, he does. And I thought to myself, I can't argue with the guy. He's the one in charge. He's got the whistle. But I decided that day I couldn't really argue with him because I didn't know as much as he did. So I became a referee. And 34 years later, I'm still doing the same stuff. And so the point is that you got to know your craft, you got to prepare yourself well, and you've got to make sure that ultimately what you're concerned with is the care, safety, and enjoyment of those players first. all the rest of this happens. Look at me. All the rest of this happens if you put those as your primary goals because you want to support the game.
Yeah, no, I think that's some great advice for the next group that's trying to come through. I'm going to put you on the spot for one more question, Kris. If you could dream and set a goal of, what NCAA college NYSOA games look like in 5-10 years, what would that look like for you? What would those opportunities look like for women that are trying to break through?
I would like it to be, again, it's not putting me on the spot. It's again that thing of ensuring that our referees, our entire cadre of referees, are well prepared for what they are going to do, that they've been given every opportunity to prepare well for it. I would like the standard of play to be equal to the rest of the world. Now, what I mean by that is I would like us to be able to compete at that higher level and have our referees match that higher level competition. Now, our crew that we sent obviously did very well because they were on the final. But the point is I'd like to have all of our games have more of that feel to it, that we are playing at a really high level. I happen to live in a state that, we kind of support, for any of you who don't know, I live in Alabama. We support the pointy end football more than we do the round football. So we are not necessarily one of those top level states for people to develop in. However, I think that the college game is what has helped many of our referees truly develop. That's because it's a much more competitive, higher level game. So that's where I'd like it to be. I'd like us to have all of our levels step up so that no matter where anybody's living, if they're living in Alaska, I live there too, I'm not putting Alaska down. If they live in Alaska, they have enough that they can develop their skill sets to be at that higher level. That if they live in New Mexico or Wyoming, they have enough of a level to develop their skills. Obviously, there's places like California, like Florida, New York, Texas, that have a lot of higher level games. They continue to stay at that high level, but that we raise everything else up so that our referees are better, that our play is better, and that everyone sees refereeing as something that they'd like to do instead of it being a necessary evil to the game. I'd like to see our receiving population accept this role as we being the same kind of professionals that they are. That's my dream, is that we no longer have referee abuse, we have assault or any of those other things, but we're respected as much as the players are expected to be respected.
Well, thank you, Kris. Is there anything else you want to kind of share with the NYSOA family before we wrap up today?
Just I wish everybody the best. 2023 is going to be a really good year, and I'm hoping the best for everyone in all walks of their lives, and especially as we move forward in this soccer world. I love it because I get the opportunity to see so many of our young referees across this country. I'm very, very fortunate that way. And it's so wonderful to watch them developing and moving up. So I'm wishing for them a really good year of development and understanding and movement forward. And to the NYSOA administrators, especially those who are newly elected to their positions, I wish them luck in ensuring that we get it right, that the college game gets it right, and that we make it a great environment for the officiating crews.
Thank you, Kris. Really appreciate your time. We'll see you later, NYSOA family.
Thank you.